Hello, good afternoon. I'm delighted to welcome everyone that is coming in, connecting with us in this space today. For us, it's a very awaited moment. We are very British today, so we're starting right on time at 4:30 p.m. Brazil time. And before anything, I would like to thank our special guest, Andres Robert. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And also Raquel, who is here with us, helping us with this translation, bringing Portuguese to everyone here who is hearing Portuguese. Okay, for those who don't know me, I'm Verônica. I'm co-founder of Flora, which is a consultancy that was founded by me and my partner, Letícia Bressani. We are a consultancy that was born to meet human resource needs exclusively for companies who intend to have a sustainability agenda internationally. We want to help organizations and leaders to face the challenges for positive and social environmental impact. With that said, I'm going to briefly talk to you about my history before passing the floor to our guest for you to get to know us a little bit more and why this awareness and this conscious leadership is so important for all of us. So to start with, I would like to say that I have assumed my first leadership at 22 when I used to work at call centers. And at that time, when I assumed that leadership of a team of more or less 20 people, I started reflecting about how the corporate space was different from spaces that I used to navigate in, especially in my family, where in my context, I had a lot of space to manifest myself, to discuss with adults, even when I was younger. And when I went to the corporative space, I saw that hierarchy was always really important. So authenticity for me, ever since I had my first experience with leadership, is something that has always provoked me thinking why in the organizations we start many times incorporating our corporative side and don't leave our authenticity aside. It was many years working with different projects with corporate transformation and leadership. And when we have a challenge of developing other leaders, and when that came to me, I always had this need of living something before taking that to the leaders. And it was at this moment, in a moment like this, when I had to develop a project for the development of a group of leaders that at that time I used to work in Natura, that I met Andres. And I was looking for references of leaders that was different from the conventional side. And we had at that moment this need for looking for regeneration, for awareness in the business lives. And I started looking for different companies, what were the models of leadership that were aligned with this regenerative leadership, and mirroring myself where I think it's very regenerative in the organizational field. I started understanding who did the Patagonia project, and then I met Andres because of that. So I could spend 3 hours talking about this from 2021 until 2024, all of this journey of transformation that started with myself, then went to the organizations. But I'm going to focus specifically on a point that was a life changer for me, which was in 2021 when I met him. I was invited to do a program which is bio leadership program. I'm going to ask him to talk to us a little bit about it. But Andres brought a provocation at that time, which was a look of the integration of nature and the environment in businesses. And it was a change of keys and everywhere I thought about. So I started to think about myself and the employee experience, but we needed to look at the nature experience and the expansion of the self, the planet, the other. That started provoking several questions inside of me. And with all of these provocations, I am living now in Florida. I started to do a master's degree in sustainability, and I have escaped to Florida because I want to escape from the big city of São Paulo. I wanted to have a better integration with nature, and I wanted to live in a place that had other knowledge besides only corporative type of knowledge that it has brought to me. But the webinar is not only about myself, but I would just like to talk to you about my journey and to say that we need to live that before we take that to other people and to change our mindset and our way of thinking in the development of leaders and the organization. But let's go to what's interesting. I would like to say welcome, Andres. Once again, I would like for you to get to meet this Colombian British, and that is the father of Luna, and that has the capacity of having such a connection. And I have met not many people in my life that has brought this reflection. So if I could bring one word that could define him, it's the capacity of listening that he has. So Andres, I'm very happy to receive you today. And tell us a little bit, who are you? And tell us not only about your gifts and talents that you're taking to the world, but also who you are in the eyes of Luna. Because when we talk about awareness and this conscious leadership, tell us a little bit on the eyes of your daughter. Sorry.
Wow. Well, hello, first of all, everybody, and Vero and Leticia and team. I just want to say a deep respect and gratitude and congratulations for getting Flora up and running, and you're doing it with so much care and commitment and wisdom. It's really beautiful to sort of see how you've started it, and it's a real joy to be with you today. So thank you for the invitation. And folks, I'm sorry my Portuguese isn't quite there with being able to do this in just the one language, but I am doing some more Portuguese lessons, and I do want to be in Brazil with the team in 2025. Yeah, a bit about myself. I was born in Colombia, and I'm half Colombian and I'm half English. And for me, that's really important in this conversation because I have worked a bit in Brazil over the years. And when I'm in South America and when I'm in Brazil, I feel really at home. I feel like my blood is very, very similar to the blood close to the land. And it's really, really beautiful for me that we're creating these moments and this work that's connecting land and culture and knowledge. I'll say more in the conversation, but really through my life, I have come to explore how to help humanity reconnect with nature and how we've come to remember that we are part of life. And a lot of my work is about saying, how do we re-evolutionize? How do we return human systems so that they care for life and so that they are in relationship with life? My daughter, what a beautiful question, and thank you for the question. My daughter's name is Aluna, and Aluna comes from an indigenous community in Colombia called the Kogi. And for the Kogi, my understanding is that Aluna is the word for connected thought and connected spirit. And for me, that's the essence, really. And I think we may talk a bit about this, that what does it come to live in the world, and what does it look like to develop leadership from a place of feeling connection between all things. Um, and again, I did ask my daughter. She's only 5. I said, "What do you think of me?" And she said, "I don't understand." And I was with my wife as well, and so I said, "What? Well, how do you see me?" And then Jessie, my wife, gave an example, and she said, "Kind." And then Aluna looked at me and she said, "Fun."
Ah,
Um, so that was nice to see. But I did think about this question. What is amazing to me is when I look at Aluna, she's not thinking, she's not judging me yet. She's not interpreting me. When I look at her, she's a mirror to being totally present and totally free in expressing what she's feeling in that moment. And so I think I am whatever she is feeling in that moment. And sometimes I bring her joy, and sometimes I bring her frustration that I'm saying it's bedtime. Yeah, yeah. Vero, you asked the question about gifts as well, but maybe I'll let you maybe frame some questions, or yeah, I don't want to
uhum.
speak for too long. Yeah.
Sem problemas. Que bonito tudo isso. E,
Great, that is so
bom,
beautiful. I
eu
see
comentei,
this
eu
very
participo, eu
beautifully.
participei da primeira
But
turma
I
do
said that I
fellowship do
participated in the first
Bioleadership,
fellowship,
e para
bio
mim foi um
leadership,
momento de muita
and for me it
transformação,
was a
porque
moment of a lot of
eu
transformation
fui em
because for
pandemia.
me it was
E eu
during the
estava super
pandemic,
receosa de
and
participar dessa
I
formação, porque o meu
was I
inglês
didn't know
não
if
era
I could
fluente, até
participate
hoje
because
não
I
é,
wasn't fluent in
mas eu sou
English yet.
aventureira.
Until today I am
E eu tive um
not
tipo
fluent yet,
de
but I'm
aprendizado
adventurous,
muito
and
especial, porque eu aprendi com o meu
I had a
coração.
very special learning because I've learned with my
E eu
heart.
queria que você
And I
contasse para as
wanted
pessoas,
you to tell
Andrés,
everyone
o que que
here
te inspirou a criar
what
o
has
Bioleadership
inspired
e
you
contar um
to
pouco assim
create
como
this
que esse projeto
project
está
and how this
configurado
project
hoje.
is
Conta um pouco para a
set
gente da sua
today. Can you
inspiração.
tell us a little bit about your inspiration?
Yeah, great, great. Well, I probably would go back 20 years and to being in my 20s. And I joined the world of work, and I worked in big organizations. And when I was in big companies, somehow I had this feeling that we weren't connecting things well, and that there was people in one part of the organization doing things that these groups of people didn't know. And then there was other people doing something here, and it just wasn't connected. But I also could see that there were people in the organization who weren't happy. They were in an environment that didn't make them feel complete, like whole. And so I have always had a question about what makes us feel whole, complete as human beings, and how do we live life where we are somehow seeing the whole system, being part of the whole system. And I actually think those two things are connected, to be myself, my full self, to feel part of a whole world. And that has always been with me. I've always worked in social business. I've always worked in positive social change and systems change. And then I got into I started my own projects. I would create experiences and events that were about learning. So I've always worked with learning. And then about 14, 15 years ago, I started a master's program that was on responsible business. It was called Responsible Business. And I thought I was starting a green MBA. I thought I was going to do something about corporate responsibility, social business. Okay, I was interested in that. But from day one, it was about what in English I say worldview, and in Spanish I think I've seen it as cosmovisión. Like, what is the vision What is the window through which we have come to see the world? And why do we believe that we should act in a certain way in the world? And I came to see that the modern world has been created through a worldview, through a window where we see ourselves as separate to nature and separate to life. We've designed schools, our businesses, our communities, our cities in a way where life is over there and we are here. And because of that, we're causing a lot of damage, but the reality is that when we do damage to life, we're only damaging ourselves as well. Because so for me, all of the work that we do really is about helping this reconnection of human systems and nature. And when the Bio Leadership Project, which is the organization we set up, today we say the mission, like the purpose, is to help earth-centered leadership in every sector of society. Raquel, I'm sorry, because I know that there is lots of new terms, but what is it to have leaders and human progress, not just individual leaders, but human systems where the care for life is at the center, And when we started it 7 years ago, and I've been working with nature for a long time, but when we started it, I thought let's do this so that we can help it feel more normal that business should work with nature, that cities should work with nature. And what is a great joy now is that it doesn't sound like a silly thing to say anymore. It doesn't sound like a childlike thing to say anymore. It sounds more like, absolutely, this is the most important kind of human development or innovation or challenge that we could be working on as people for ourselves, but for our children and all of the generations that follow and all of the living beings that are part of our planet. So yeah, that's where the work has come from.
Obrigada por trazer
Thank you.
toda a
Thank you so
história.
much for bringing all this history behind the creation of bio. And what makes me remember a phrase of an actor that I like a lot, which is Frederic Lamour, who has written a book in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And this book is Reinventing Organizations. And there's a sentence that he says, which is the organizations cannot evolve beyond the level of consciousness of their leaders. So since we're saying this, you have talked about the cosmovision, how the way that we see the world and the way that we relate with it, thinking that the greatest part of us who were created in the Western world, we have the separation. We have learned to be separated from the world. And bio is exactly that, being able to reintegrate all of these parts. Could you tell us a little bit, for those who are initiating this journey, what is being part of the world? What is caring for life, putting the life in the center? What are the qualities internally that people need to develop or that can develop to start reflecting about this, and for them to elevate their level of awareness and automatically influence the world around them? How do you see this internal qualities part for us to create this model of leadership that is more responsible?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. I think the work of Frederic Laloux is so important because it's opened up a whole different space to say at a global level, organizations are not just machines, and organizations, especially if we want to address the challenges that we face today, need to work more like living systems, and we need to organize things not through control and hierarchy and power over, but in dynamic ways, in fluid ways, in interconnected ways, in highly intelligent, sort of like sensitive but caring ways. So I see that what we're doing is another cycle of practice that builds on Frederick Laloux and other ideas of organizations as living systems. I guess my narrative says, okay, for a long time, for 2, 3, 4 centuries, we have worked through this worldview that's based on maximization, like big is good. Control. We can control things. Competition. And this idea of disconnection, no? We've already said it. I have seen images, paintings of when colonialists arrived in Latin America, what we say is now Latin America, and they tied a chain across horses and went into the forest. You know, the horses went into the forest, and there are so many images like that of how we conquered worlds, conquered nature, and came from this place of maximization, control, competition over nature, and a lack of understanding of ecosystems, no? So I say, so today, what leadership qualities do we need? And especially when really the science about the planet says it all. Sometimes it's not easy to look at it, but we're really putting all of our Earth systems at great risk, you know? The world is very uncertain. You know, it's very there is an acronym. Raquel, I'm sorry again for the language, but there is an acronym that says we live in a VUCA world, and VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We live in a world that's more and more like that. So how do we navigate it? And I feel like, okay, so what are the things we need to cultivate for leaders? It's resilience, you know, the capacity to absorb shocks, to stay well as change happens, systemic awareness, the capacity to see the picture and see how systems are alive and connected, adaptability, the capacity to change, and be well with change, connection and love. You know, like if you were going to choose people to try to help us transcend the challenges that we're facing today, I think that's a pretty good set of skills. Amazingly, I feel like nature is the best teacher we have to understand what those qualities are like. And if we can reconnect through nature to those qualities, I think we can really help good things happen in the world.
Muito bonito.
Very beautiful. Resilience, systemic view, connection, love, adaptability. Wow. So I think for me, especially looking at this journey of connecting myself to this greater awareness, I think that the greatest thing for me here is adaptability. My career, my professional career, and the look of leadership has always been planned step by step, and I have learned time over time because I have not stopped learning. I'm still learning of not controlling that, of being more responsive, of being more adaptable and being making things happen. So this has been a huge gain ever since I started this regenerative view, and it demands a self-observation constantly and daily for us not to lose ourselves in our ego and to go back to what the society is asking us to do. And it's really challenging for us to have this awareness, to be paying attention to what we're doing. So thank you so much for that, because I think that I have learned so much in this journey and with these qualities and love with everything that we do. And in the project, this is what we have been doing, and this is really present. I honor you for bringing these points, and I am very thankful to have lived this with you. We have said in the beginning about Patagonia, which is how I ended up connecting with you. 2 years ago, I did a benchmark with Vincent Stanley, which is Patagonia's director of philosophy. And at that time, I wanted to explore a little bit more about human resources process. And I wanted to know, in his point of view, because he's the director of philosophy, what he thought about the processes of human resources and what was more interesting for Patagonia. And he brought a answer that I didn't imagine. He said that for him, the process where he focus more attention is the executive in the executive's attraction, because he wants more activists. He wants to attract activists. And when he brings this purpose, not only for the corporate, but for the evolution, things are more valid. So ever since then, this information stuck in me. And I said, Letícia, that's where we need to go. People are not navigating in that. What type of profile are we able to draw, to attract, to recompensate the leaders in a way for this view on the whole of the whole? So with this in mind, with this anguish, I started thinking, what is your vision? Can you notice this position of activism when you're doing this work with the leaders of Patagonia? And another question, sorry, when you started working with them in the development of Earth University, what were the greatest challenges and lessons learned in the development of these projects? And also, maybe some people don't know what is this university. So if you could tell us a little bit about this Earth University, how you noticed the activism there and the main learnings. Thank you so much. I know it's 3 questions in one, but okay.
Great. Yeah, maybe I can share an answer, and it touches on all of those points. I have worked with Patagonia in Europe for the last 5 years, since before the pandemic, and we run a program. I helped to design and run a program called the Patagonia Earth University. Of course, I'm not a Patagonia employee, so I can only speak so far to the work and the experience of being there. But if I speak about the Earth University, I think it illustrates the kind of patterns and the kind of priorities that the company work with. I mean, my experience is that the values that the organization hold and the values that they invite people to carry absolutely put it into a space where it feels like it's an activist movement as much as a business. And there are people who I've met there in the senior leadership team who deeply care and deeply want to make a difference. And that's right at the front. It's not, and maybe that's the most important thing. Maybe that's the most important thing. I had a conversation last year with the man who's now chief executive, Ryan Gellert, And Ryan was the director of the European business when we started working together. So we met. And he told me a story about Yvon Chouinard, the founder. And I won't say the whole story, but it's just, this is a man who is committed to just do the right thing. You go back 20 years and they found out that their clothes had chemicals in some of the cottons. And he said, we're going to go 100% organic cotton. And people said it might break the business. I don't care. Do the right thing. I don't know if he said do the right thing, but that was the attitude. Do the right thing. So they've created this pattern of what's the right thing to do now. What and it's in the frames and it's in the position that they take. It's very, very interesting. I feel like because this is my personal opinion, it's not a general Patagonia thing, but I feel like what Patagonia do is also they're very, very honest. They don't try to hide, they don't try to pretend. So, for example, they would say, we are not a sustainable business. We're not a sustainable business, but we're trying to be a responsible business. So what they do is they say, here is the goal. Not here, not here. There is the goal, and we're about here. But let's keep going. And they have that feeling of like, this is a place where we can help each other keep going. The work that we did that we do with the Patagonia Earth University was basically, it came from the head of people and culture saying, we're looking to create a program that's about helping Patagonia people connect with our culture in a Patagonia way. And they were getting a lot of ideas that were very based on return on investment and very linear development plans. If you do A and B, then you get people who can do C and D. And they felt like, no, this isn't right for us. And unfortunately, I met Evelyn Doyle, who is now the international head of people and culture. And she really liked the sound of bioleadership. And we helped them design a program that was, to my mind, it's designed like a forest. It's designed more like an ecosystem of learning. And the ecosystem is based on if you imagine a forest, there are 4 beautiful trees. And each of those trees is based on really important questions at the heart of how Patagonia have been navigating their work. So it's based on real questions. This is not, hey, isn't it nice to connect with nature? This is like, where are your most difficult questions? So, for example, one, how do we keep growing when we are challenging capitalist growth? So how do we grow our impact? How do we grow what we do whilst trying to change how business operates? Another question, how do we navigate complex environments when the world is complex, when it's complex inside? Another question, how can we work more in relationship with communities, with other businesses, with nature as well? So amazing questions. And basically what we did was design events and modules around each of those 4 core trees, so and each module takes people into nature. We work on real life questions. We bring different forms of knowledge. All of those things that we talked about around resilience, connection, adaptability, systemic awareness, love. We create experiences with nature to help people. Okay, that's how a system works. That's how we can connect. That's how I can be vulnerable. I can let go of having an answer and ask questions together. And I think that program, the fact that Patagonia said, yes, let's do that program, explains how they hold the culture and the commitment to learning in different ways, to doing different things, to do the right thing. No, it's not for me to say where are they at as a business. It's not for me to say how do they do these things and design them, in terms of like high level. But that's my experience of working them, and I know that they're growing and they're learning all the time, and it's not easy growing, and they have all of the challenges that come with becoming bigger, and but yeah, I think it's a place where you can walk through it and say to anybody, hey, do you think we're doing the right thing?
Uau, super inspirador.
Wow,
Aliás, se
very
você precisar de um
inspiring.
assistente
In
para
fact, if you
com
need any
você
assistant
fazer
to
esse
go
treinamento,
with
pode
you
me
to do
chamar,
this
tá? Estou à
training, you can count
disposição.
on me. I'm going to be at your disposal.
Deve ser muito gostoso
It
estar em
must be
meio
really
a
nice,
pessoas que estão
very
tentando
good
fazer as
to be
coisas
around people
certas,
that are trying to do the right
ainda
thing,
que com
even
tantos desafios ao
when
redor.
we have so many
E
challenges
essa,
ahead of us.
esse ponto que você trouxe,
And
essa
this point that you
reflexão, esse
have
insight,
mentioned
me leva à próxima pergunta.
takes me to the next
Tem
question.
Um ativista, um
There's an
líder, um dos
activist, a
principais
leader, one of the
líderes
main
indígenas que nós temos aqui no
leaders that
Brasil,
we
chamado
have in the
Ailton
indigenous
Krenak.
community,
Já ouviu
which is
falar
called
dele?
Ailton Krenak. Have you heard of him before?
Absolutely, yeah,
Sim.
yeah, amazing man, yeah.
Sim. Ele tem um livro que eu acho muito
He has a
engraçado,
book
assim,
that I
muito
find
bonito,
really
chama muita
inspiring
atenção.
and that
O
calls a
nome
lot
do
of
livro
my
é Ideias
attention. The
para
name of
Adiar o
the
Fim
book
do
is called
Mundo.
Ideas for Postponing the End of the World.
E eu tenho tido a sorte, o
And I have had the
privilégio de
luck
conhecer
and the
muitas
privilege to
pessoas, e
have
acho que
met
algumas delas estão
many
aqui com a
people,
gente
and
hoje. Eu já
some
vi
of
aqui que
them
a
are
Carol
with us.
mandou
I have seen
mensagem, né,
that
Carol? Uma
Carol has
dessas
sent me a
pessoas que tem
question,
ideias
actually
para
sent me a
adiar o fim do
message saying
mundo.
that there are
E
ideas
eu vejo
regarding this
muita gente
postponement of the end of the
engajada
world. And I see many people that are engaged
nessa pauta mesmo de tentar
with
ser mais
this agenda of
responsável.
trying to be more
E ao mesmo
responsible.
tempo,
And at
Andrés,
the
eu
same
tenho
time, Andres,
percebido
I
muitas
have
pessoas
noticed
cansadas,
that
assim,
there are many people that are
muito
tired,
cansadas,
many
assim,
people that
de
are
lutar
just
contra o
tired of
sistema, de
fighting
tentar
against the
rastrear o
system, of trying
sistema
to hack the
e de dar um
system,
passo para
and of
frente e dois
doing
passos para
going one
trás.
step forward and two steps back.
Inclusive, conversando
And
com
in
muitas
fact,
pessoas, algumas
when talking to
delas
people, there are
não
some of
querem mais
them
trabalhar para as
that just don't
organizações do
want to
mundo
work for the
corporativo, né? Elas
organizations
vão
and
para um
for the
caminho do
corporative world
empreendedorismo.
anymore. They want to be
E eu tenho
entrepreneurs and they want
refletido
to do
muito
their own
sobre
thing.
isso, né?
And I
Porque assim,
have
óbvio, é uma
reflected a lot
escolha
about
e a
this
gente
because,
respeita a
of
escolha
course,
das
it's a
pessoas de
choice
onde
and
elas
we
querem
can
estar.
respect people
Mas
for
ao
their
mesmo tempo eu fico
choices. But at the same
pensando
time, I keep
o quanto
thinking
que as empresas elas
how
têm essa
much the
capacidade de
companies have this
mobilização, porque elas têm
capacity
o
of doing
dinheiro,
this
dinheiro, influencia
mobilization
o
because they have
poder,
the money and power
os governos, entre
and they
outras
can
coisas.
influence the government and other things.
E por conta de ter esse poder,
And
quando a gente se
due to
afasta, quando a
them
gente vira as
having
costas, né, para esse
power,
sistema, a gente
when
deixa
we
de
turn
agir
our
dentro
backs to the
dele.
system, we
Mas enfim,
stop
muitas
acting
viagens
in
aqui na minha
it.
cabeça, eu tô
I know
falando
that I'm
muita
tripping a
coisa ao
little
mesmo
bit with
tempo.
this,
Mas eu
saying
queria
many things
saber
at
se
the same
você
time, but
percebe
I wanted to
esse
know if you notice
cansaço,
this
né, coletivo, assim,
tiredness,
se é
collective tiredness,
uma
and
questão
if
que
it's
acontece ali no
something that
Brasil, ou
happens only
se
in
aqui
Brazil
também nos Estados Unidos eu tenho
and in the
isso, mas
United
se você
States. I see
percebe
this
isso
as
também
well.
na Europa,
But do
nos
you
lugares que
notice
estão
that in
mais
Europe and the
desenvolvidos com
other
esse tema.
places that are more developed
E
in
que
this
forma
topic?
que você
And
recomenda, né, para
how do you
nós que
recommend
estamos cansados,
for all of us that
exaustos
are
de
just
lutar contra o
exhausted
sistema,
of fighting
como
against
que a
the
gente
system?
se mantém
How can we
engajado para gerar
maintain
impacto
ourselves
positivo e
engaged
para
and
ser
generate
responsáveis
positive
no mundo?
impact
Assim,
and
qual
be
que,
uh, just
o que você pode compartilhar com a gente sobre
responsible?
isso,
What
sobre
can you share with
esse
us
cansaço coletivo?
regarding this collective tiredness?
Mm. Well, thank you for saying all of those things, Vero, and they're familiar to me. And I think a few things come to mind as you say them. One is I actually think this is it's a sharp moment in time. It's a tough moment in time. Not just because, oh, climate and carbon and global warming. We know that that's there all the time. I think it's hard also because so much of the energy, as you say, of the last 20 years, 40 years, 50 years has moved forward, but it comes back. And I know, for example, I think large corporates are really struggling to move forward. And I think when a company is publicly listed on a stock exchange. It's a technical thing to say, but it's very important. When a company has in like public investors and private equity investors, it's a huge barrier to moving things forward. And we're really at a moment in time where this is very real and very challenging. If you look at companies like, I don't know, maybe there are people on the call from Unilever, Paul Polman, their chief executive, Raquel, I said, a guy called Paul Polman. He was very, very progressive. He really brought in ideas about sustainable leadership. But the reality of the market system means Unilever have not been able to carry that going forward. Natura Co, maybe there's similar experiences of you grow, there's finance around it, and it comes back. So I can understand it's tough. It's really, really tough. And collectively, we see that, wow, when are these big trends about the way we treat the planet going to change? So the question is kind of like, where do we place our energy and where do we place our hope? And interestingly, for me, the thing that I find really helpful with this is nobody can do it alone. Nobody, Patagonia can't do it alone. The UN can't do it alone. A regenerative farmer in the Amazon can't do it alone. And maybe it comes back to this place of disconnection. Like, what I think is most exciting in terms of development and sustainable progress is when you start seeing collaborative and systemic work where organizations start to work together around places or sectors or geographic locations. And when people say, let's find a bigger goal together and let's work together towards that bigger goal. And all of a sudden, it's not just one organization that's trying to make a difference. It's like a group. It becomes a community of organizations. I know that in the country Wales, in the UK, Wales, we have a very good friend of the BioLeadership Project. And they helped to set up a project which is about saying, so the population of Wales is 4 million people. It's a small country, but 4 million people is okay. It's a good number. And the project is how to help Wales be one of the most resilient countries on the planet. And what's beautiful about that is that in order to help resilience, they brought doctors and nurses and food growers and educators and businesses and government. Like, resilience and being the most resilient country is such a beautiful goal that it helps people go, so it's not about, as a company, what are our SDG targets. It's not what about our carbon targets. Is, can we be part of the most resilient place in the world? Can we help our country transform to be a most beautiful place to thrive? And maybe that's where we start to see a difference. But I think there's a lot of work to do, and I think there's a lot of work to do to change financial systems and governance structures, and everybody still has to have a go, but maybe starting from a place of, I can't do this myself. Can you help me? That's a big place to start. Yeah. Vero, I've got to say, I don't know, I'm speaking a lot and you have a lot of wisdom with these things as well. So I'd love to know what you think about that as well.
A maior parte da minha
The
sabedoria
greatest part of
veio
my
de
wisdom
momentos
comes from moments where us as a community undressed this mycelium and we were able to reflect together. My response to that is that my way of being able to continue with my hope up, to continue having this hope, is the network, the connection with other people. And something that has happened recently, and I have even commented with you before or during the foundation of Flora, instead of putting our proposal, we went to listen to the network, our friends, the people that are connected to sustainability. And we talked to 70 people, and 68 of them stopped everything that they were doing to hear us during 1, 2 hours. So the power, the strength that we have to hear one another, to collaborate. And we don't ask for this help. We don't connect with other people. So specifically in this point, I continue my hope up with because of people. And I agree with you. The meetings that we have, the moments that we have to share with one another, sometimes it's a victory that is very small, but we need to start celebrating the small victories. And without a doubt, for me, this network of support that I have found around myself and that I activate more and more. So this keeps my hopes up and it gives me more and more ideas for me to continue fighting that in the world. Thank you so much for asking. And now I'm going to bring a question from Marilene Costa. We have worked many years together when we used to reflect about life, about social inequality at that time. And we didn't talk about sustainability back then, but we have always said, in other words, about the awareness of class and the privilege that people have of provoking and leading change and others don't. So, Mari, thank you so much for being here with us. I'm going to read her question here. So I'm going to see for you to be able to translate. Okay. She has asked the following: what are the crucial points in the leader's self-development journey? Based on this concept that is increasingly relevant in a world where organizations are called upon to play an active role in promoting social and environmental well-being. So, what are the crucial points of this self-development of the leader?
Wow, a great question. I mean, what comes to my mind is questions of agency and responsibility and how to work with complexity. So the world that we live in can be very fragile, or it's going to be fragile, and it's going to be full of challenges. It is already full of challenges that are very difficult to navigate. So what are the moments where development happens so that we can help to navigate those things? I think some of it is in helping, there is a constant journey of being able to sort of step outside of ourselves and see our identity as more than just an individual, but myself and a community, myself and a society, myself and planet. And I'm still learning about all of these things, for myself. Becoming a father was an amazing moment, and you read that for a lot of people, that's very influential. Reconnecting with nature and there are these beautiful stories about when astronauts see the planet from the moon and go,
Yeah.
oh, wow, that's me. I am that. It's connected and it's a living system. So it's interesting because our development. So somebody on LinkedIn the other day put up a YouTube of Ken Robinson. It's a very, very famous TED talk. And if you don't know it, it's very wonderful to watch this. It's Ken Robinson, Raquel. He was a specialist in education, and he said about how education has basically been designed to take our creativity away.
Wow.
You know, we've become like machines
Uhum.
in trying to pass exams, and we have become incredibly afraid of getting things wrong. And so for me, there's something about what are the points of development where on the one side we're like, oh, I'm not just me, I'm more than me, and I can look after more than me by looking after my team, my society, my company, my world. I'm looking after the whole, but also how can I do this so that I don't feel like I have to have the answer? You know,
Uhum.
how can I ask questions differently? How can I paint a picture differently? How can I understand differently? And Marilyn, I don't know if that resonates, but that's what comes to mind. Yeah.
Obrigada, Andrés. Tem uma outra pergunta aqui da Carol.
Thank you so much. There is another question here from Carol. She's asking how the bioleadership work in practice work, especially in a small company. Is this something realistic to be applied in the development of the team?
Yeah, sure. I mean, thanks, Carol. And Carol, you can answer this question as well as I can, definitely. I think the way I think about it is that bioleadership really is it's about three kinds of knowledge. So if we're trying to grow in a way that's connected with nature, and if we're trying to coming back to how I started, earth-centered leadership, if we're trying to put earth and life at the center, what kind of knowledge do we want to support? What kind of knowledge is the right term. And I think so there are in a team or in an organization, how do we support that kind of knowledge? So I think that the three kinds of knowledge for me are thinking and being and connecting. And nature can help us understand each of those forms of knowledge when it comes to bioleadership. So there are lots of models, biomimicry being one. Carol, I know that you for me are one of my heroes in biomimicry. You know, there's thinking of like, okay, nature works in seasons. Nature has different kinds of design principles. You know, that nature doesn't work through maximization, it operates through optimization, where the system is in balance. So there's lots of things that we can learn that are about these are the principles of healthy systems, these are the principles of life systems. How do we take those principles and apply them to our work? The Patagonia Earth University, I kind of designed it using the principles of a living system. Okay, that's one form of knowledge. The second form of knowledge is being. Like coming back to those things of resilience, adaptability, connection, love. You don't learn those things by reading a textbook. You can try to understand them as a concept, but you don't grow them. And I feel like taking the time, to go for a walk with colleagues and sit, and be silent for a while under a tree, and then look to the sky and notice that the sun is turning. Like absolute, it's so simple, but very magical things happen when we take the time to just listen and notice the patterns of nature. And there are so many things that we can do to cultivate being. And then there are so many things that are the third kind of knowledge is about connecting, like connecting as social systems. And for me, that's about understanding how do we ask different kinds of questions of each other? How do we do that thing of like, wow, I can see myself through your eyes as well. So maybe it's not the most practical answer, Carol, sorry, but for me, it's as a team, how do we find ways to develop these different forms of knowledge? And from there, you ask a question of how shall we grow? How should we approach this service? How do we develop a new school? The approach becomes different. It becomes life-centered. I don't know.
Eu acho que é prático, sim, não é fácil, mas
I think it's
é
practical. It's not
prático
easy,
começar
but it is practical. And when we start asking questions instead of worrying only about the answer, because we're always worried about the answer, but there is a sentence of a book of Daniel Wall, Design of Regenerative Science. He says that we are accustomed to give answer to the wrong question because we spend a long time thinking about the answer and not the problem. So I think that this point is crucial regarding what you have mentioned. And we have a huge problem ahead of us because we have two questions here. And I would love to ask them to you, but our time is almost up. So I'm going to try to ask you a little bit faster, and let's see if you can answer it quicker too. So, but I think it's quicker because it's easier. But I'm going to ask them both, and maybe we can go over 2 or 3 minutes our time. We have spoken a lot about leadership. We have talked about cosmovision, about living systems. We have talked about the quality of leadership, where to start, what Patagonia is doing. We have talked about responsibility of listening to ourselves, connecting to other people, understand that we're part of the whole, and we are also the whole. So how do we make this balance? And we have talked about education that frees and the education that recedes our creativity. But I would like to know from you, Andres, what for you is more difficult to sustain in the point of view of individual practices for sustainability and regeneration? What is difficult to sustain? I need to say that I do online shopping of the Chinese market, and I am not proud of that, but I do that. But so what for you is difficult to sustain? I had this curiosity.
Oh wow. It's all difficult. It's all difficult because we're all part of the systems we're trying to change, you know? And I don't know. I think we should give ourselves a little bit of a break sometimes. It's not easy. I was going to try and keep it short. You take me back to Aluna, to my daughter. And honestly, maybe this is an easy answer because I often say this, but what's the best thing that I can help my daughter? I think it's to help her feel like she belongs. Raquel, it's a strange thing to say, sorry, but like she belongs on the planet, she belongs in life, because from there she can be most content, and then all of a sudden I feel like if we have a worldview where we feel like we belong, I don't need more stuff. I don't need so much from the shops. I don't need so much from, like consuming. I'm not that bothered about, hey, this fancy holiday. Like then I can approach things in a different way. So it's all hard. It's all, we have so much choice. We have so much social pressure. We have so much expectation from other people and from ourselves. So, but it can be easier when we say, hey, you know what? I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm just going to enjoy being me. And that's the hardest part to answer the question. Maybe the hardest part is like, I'm okay. I'm good enough, thanks.
Se é difícil para você,
Yes, if
você
it's
imagina para
difficult
nós.
for you, imagine for us.
Don't say it.
Imagina. Mas assim, ó, o nosso tempo acabou,
But
mas eu quero
our
muito
time
fazer a
is
pergunta do
up. But
Dani
I
e
would
se
like
alguém
to
precisar
just
sair, eu
ask the
super
question from
agradeço
Danielle. I
a
thank everyone that
participação
was
que
here with
você
us. If you
teve aqui até
need to
agora. Pedir para
leave,
vocês
it's
seguirem aqui
okay.
fora nas redes
But
sociais,
you
para a
can
gente
follow
continuar
us
essa
in
conversa
Florida.
também.
We can continue our
Então, se alguém quiser mandar
conversation
alguma
there.
mensagem
If you want
sobre
to send any
coisas
message
sobre
in
a
social
experiência, o que
media,
você
how
sentiu, que
your
insight você
experience
teve,
was, what
a gente
insight you
vai adorar
had,
continuar essa
we are
conversa. Eu
going
e a
to
Letícia.
have
E para quem
delight
pode ficar aqui mais
answering
dois
you
minutinhos,
afterwards.
três
But for
minutinhos, eu
those who
queria
want
fazer
to stay with
a
us for
pergunta
2
do
more
Daniel
minutes or
Mira,
3 more
uma
minutes,
pergunta
I would like to ask
profunda.
a question from Daniel Mira,
Ele
which is a
fala
very
assim:
deep
na
question. He
dimensão
says,
humana,
in the human
eu
dimension,
percebo a natureza
I
criativa
perceive
do
the
fogo
creative nature
que
of fire,
reparte e
which
não perde a sua
distributes and
unidade.
doesn't lose its unity.
Mas quando entra na
But
combustão
when it
egoísta, consome
combusts
tudo que está ao seu redor.
selfishly, it consumes everything around it.
Como você acha que a natureza
How do you
pode
think
revelar os
nature can
nossos
reveal our
potenciais e
potential
trazer um
and bring
equilíbrio às
balance
nossas
to our
intenções?
intentions?
Wow. Wow, what an amazing question. Well, uh, Daniela, I have to say a lot of my own training was working with the Taoist tradition, and the elements are very important, and the relationship of the elements, you know, where fire always turns to ash, and ash becomes the earth, and then eventually water comes from the earth. So nature has its patterns where there is balance, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe to keep it short, I think intention is a big thing. Like intention is in our own development, intention is it's like a star that we navigate by, no? And so sometimes I wonder if it's about saying, coming back to some of what we've been speaking about, we live in a world where for a long time the story has been bigger, make it bigger and it's good, make it faster and it's good, make it more productive and it's good, win and it's good. And I just wonder if some of that, if I understand you right, some of it is about reframing our intentions to be balanced, to be well, to be healthy, to be loving. One of my teachers, a gentleman called John Milton, who is in the USA, he's now 84. And he said, when I was young, someone said, what do you want to be when you're older? And he said, I want to be a tranquil person. And, when we set intentions like that, then the fire is more balanced. I don't know.
Uau,
That's what came up.
uau. Andrés, eu poderia ficar
Andres,
contigo aqui
I
até
could stay here
depois
with
de amanhã de
you
manhã, até
until
agosto, até
tomorrow,
outubro, quando
until
a gente vai se
August,
encontrar.
until October,
Mas eu vou
when we're
respeitar
going to meet. But I'm going
o
to
nosso
respect
tempo e, assim,
our
novamente
time.
agradecer
And
de
once
fundo do
again, thank you so
coração,
much from the bottom of my heart.
não só por esse
And not
encontro,
only for
mas por
this
todo o trabalho que
encounter, of
você tem
course, but
feito,
for all
não
the
só no
work that you
bio,
have been doing,
mas
not
como
only in bio,
consultor,
but
como
also as a
amigo, como
consultant, as
pai,
a
como
friend, as a
esposo,
father, as a
toda a
husband,
sua inteireza
all
que você leva para
your
todos os lugares
wholeness that you take everywhere
que você vai.
you go.
Quero te agradecer muito
I
pelo
would
seu
like to
serviço para o
thank you so much for
mundo.
your service to the world.
Quero agradecer as
And
pessoas que
I would like to
tiraram
thank
tempo para estar aqui com a
everyone that
gente
has
hoje,
taken their time to
deixar
be
canal
here with us
aberto para essas
today, to
pessoas
leave
que a
this
gente vai
channel
ter
open for
também,
all
vou fazer
of
um
you,
comercial aqui, que a
because I'm
gente
going
vai
to
ter o
do
Bio
my
Leader
marketing here. We're going to
de
have the bio leadership
2025, as
for
inscrições já estão abertas,
2025.
se alguém quiser
The
saber um pouco mais sobre
subscriptions are
isso,
open for
tem
those
tanto
who
o
want
time
to
do
know a
Bio
little
lá
bit
que pode
more about this.
responder,
We
também
have the
posso
team
falar da
from
minha própria
bio,
experiência
and
de
I
todos os
can
dias dessa
answer for myself
jornada,
as well
e
because
também
I have
vamos
lived
fazer o
this
Bio
journey.
Intro no
And we're
Brasil
going to
o
have the
mês que
bio intro
vem,
in Brazil next month.
uma versão
And it's going
short,
to
uma
be a
versão de
shorter
introdução
version, an introduction
de 6 semanas de
of
curso,
6 weeks
que vai ser
and the
ministrado
course that
por
is going
mim,
to
pela Carol,
be
com a
done by
participação de
me,
alguns
Carol,
fellows
and the
da
participation
rede
of some
global do
fellows
Bio.
of the
Então, deixo aqui também o
General Global
comercial
Network,
e
and
deixo
that is my
aqui, se você quiser
propaganda.
trazer alguma
But
coisa
also for
adicional
those
para
who
fechar
want to
essa
say something else,
conversa,
if you want to say something else,
o palco é
Andres,
seu.
the
E,
stage is yours.
Andrés,
And
muitíssimo
Andres, thank you
obrigada
so much for everything
pela
once again,
generosidade
for the
comigo.
generosity of being here with
Foi
us.
uma delícia esse papo
Oh,
contigo.
It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
What an absolute joy, Vero. Any conversation with you, you're doing it, you're living it, and I'm so happy. And again, congratulations, to have Flora running and connecting and weaving conversations like this one. And I feel like, it's a it's family really connecting these things, from different places. So again, congratulations, and folks, thanks for making time and joining us. And I want to leave the last word to you, Vero.
Eu estou sem palavras.
I have no words. I would just like to really thank you and everyone for having this space, and just say to everyone how happy I am to have this translation to everyone, for them to feel more safe. And don't be ashamed of your English. Just go for it. Don't worry. And it's part of this journey that we're going to have of bio leadership, of awareness that we want to give you. A great evening to all of you that are with us. Until next time.